Welcome to In the Vineyard with Chris Lake. This is how I'm going to try and show you, my students, something about the grapevines that I want you to know, so that when you come to the lab period with me, we'll have the same vocabulary and the same basic knowledge to work with, so that when we have to learn the ins and outs of physically pruning the grapevines, a skill that you're going to have to develop, that we'll be able to move through this quickly because we know what we're talking about at a certain level. So, one of the first things you have to do when you're looking at a plant and you're going to try and determine how to prune it is you have to be able to talk about that plant and the parts of that plant with the same vocabulary. As an example, this portion of the plant, from the ground up to about here, we can call the trunk of the grapevine. You'll notice it's different because it's got shedding bark. It's been around for years. It's the permanent part of the plant that will stay there through the life of this vineyard. It is, in this training system, it is a part of the plant that we'll always prune back to. We have to manage this trunk, look at it when we're coming through here during the winter season and look for damage to the trunk. If there was physical damage, a tractor might have bruised up against it. If there was damage by the climate, maybe it got cold enough so that this trunk would actually crack open and there could be some damage to this part of the trunk. It is alive. It's part of the plant that brings nutrient and water from the soil up to the rest of the plant that's necessary. You think of it as a large straw, and really only the outside circle is the most alive part, the part that you want to really manage. So we look at things on these trunks when we're working with them in the wintertime. This is the trunk. This is the Scott Henry trellis system. So in this trellis system, and the trellis being the wires and the wood that are supporting the wires, that's the method that we use to support the upper part of the plant that's growing. It's also where the fruit is going to be born. It's something that we look at in the wintertime. We look at trellis systems. We evaluate trellis systems and maintain them. But the part of the plant that's growing on this trellis system is arranged in the Scott Henry training system or training trellis system. For the Scott Henry system, you're working with canes. So a cane also has some shedding bark to it. This is 1-year-old wood. This can sometimes be called a cane because this is something we're going to lay out this year. But there's a difference between last year's cane and this year's cane. This is an example where we have to have vocabulary, and this is where I'm thinking that by using a video, you might be able to get the concept of older canes and newer canes. This is fruiting wood. This is wood that grew out last year as a green shoot and has turned brown and is hardened off. It has nodes, which are small portions on that cane that contain the shoots for next year. This is last year's cane, something like this that was laid out onto this wire. It came off of wood that was several years older down here. So, the vocabulary we're using is current season's cane, previous season's cane. And you'll see canes coming out from here. There's an area at the top of the trunk that we would call the head, because in this system we remove everything except for the canes that we intend to leave for the next season. So it's an area of renewal where we're continually getting new canes to lay out to continue to put out fruiting wood so we can continue to manage this and harvest a crop off of this training system. But it's contiguous with the older trunk down here, although the trunk down here doesn't have any place where we're going to get fruiting wood, where we're going to draw those pieces of the plant that we're going to lay out to get the fruit off of. The head, the trunk, current season's cane, previous season's cane. These are canes now. At this time of the year, when they're nice and brown, they're hard and woody, we call these parts of the plants canes. If we came out here earlier, say late summer, these would still be green. At that point, they're called shoots. As they turn from a green, succulent shoot that can be easily broken to a firm, brown, woody cane, they take on a different terminology. We just have to be familiar with these terms. We'll read them in the literature, and we have to know how they're applied when we actually walk out to look at a plant.